Welcome to Candidly Copilot with your hosts, Chad Stout and Michael Gannotti. Sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and let's get candid with Copilot. Let's get candid. All right. Hey. Welcome, everybody, to Candidly Copilot with your hosts,
Chad Stout
and Mike Gannotti. And, dude, we got a lot to talk about with Ignite happening last week. But before we do, anything been going on with Mr. Chad?
Man, I keep thinking there's going to be something exciting to share here, Mike. I guess, well, my furnace went out right in time for really cold weather here in Utah. So that's not exciting, but hey, that's been on my mind.
That's been an adventure.
Been an adventure, yeah. We got a good little snow dump in the mountains. Actually, ski season's supposed to open up late this week after Thanksgiving, at least in this area of the country. So looking forward to that. How about you, Mike?
Very nice. Well, I just got back. I was out in California for a medical thing for my biological father. Took ill, so I was out there with the siblings and doing all kinds of stuff. Got to experience this. This is the second time in like the last month I've had up close and personal with healthcare systems as somebody who covers it. So, yeah, so that's been interesting. And other than that, I will say this. So I'm fully healed from my own stuff that I had, and I have many orders I need to fulfill to family members, putting them in for blacksmithing. A number of they want bottle openers, lots of and a bunch of them want Christmas tree bottle openers, to be specific.
Interesting. All right. Yeah.
So
cool.
They'll get me in the shop this week. But yeah, last week, I mean, goodness, that was Ignite 2024 was just boom,
lift
tons
off.
of stuff.
Yeah, I know. And every year Ignite's pretty exciting. We learn a lot about new capabilities, features, products. This year I felt like it was a little different because it was very, very much focused on I think, generative AI and its advances here at Microsoft within our products, as well as, other products in the market. Myself, right, like if I try to take in too much, right, panic can ensue. So I typically just try to distill it down to like, what are the core ideas here, right, from Ignite? Because I could try, right? But I can't hold down a day job and watch every session of Ignite, right? So I try to at least narrow down the field to things that my customers are interested in, and I know they're going to be asking me about, which actually is pretty beneficial, right? Because then I get to learn a ton about those topics. And I think if I were to like distill it down to like 3 core categories that kind of came out of Ignite for me, it was around, first and foremost, something we've been talking about for years, something, as customer zero, we've worked through, right, some of the pain as an end user on this, but it's really around securing and governing your data estate, right, from an organizational perspective. Right? Not a SharePoint library perspective, not a Teams channel perspective, from an organizational perspective. And why is that difficult? Well, you've got to get a lot of people in the room, right?
Yeah.
And you got to get a lot of people to come to an agreement on things. So number one, securing and governing your data estate, of the utmost importance, right, as we move forward in this kind of new way of working with generative AI. The second concept was Copilot for every person, right? It's your assistant. It's your low-paid assistant, right, for its capabilities, but giving everyone a Copilot to boost their productivity. And then, right, this idea, which I hadn't thought of until Ignite, right? This idea of a Copilot agent for every process,
Yes.
right? Which is intriguing because
Yeah.
now we start to think about agency
Yep.
and leveraging things like actions within a custom Copilot to do work on a user's behalf or on behalf of that process that's ingrained in your organization over years, decades, and sometimes centuries. So those were the three main ideas, I think, or topics, right, that really helped me understand, okay, this is kind of what Ignite was all about, right?
Yeah, no, I
So,
like that. I like what you were saying about agents, right? Because
yeah,
I think we work healthcare and life sciences. And, certainly for life science groups, payers, pharma, et cetera, but in particular with the providers, there are many things where they're not going to jump from, the beauty with like Microsoft 365 Copilot, which you and I cover, is that it's right there in the flow of work in the apps you use. But oftentimes you need to stitch together things manually. But now with an agent, you can you're providing pretty much, instead of it being kind of one off each time, it's now almost not templatized, but kind of like it's a repeatable, predictable process where you can stitch those things together
yeah,
and
yeah,
have
yeah,
it done
exactly.
so that you take that kind of back and forth work out of the user's hands where they don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, as far as individual productivity is concerned, right? Copilot for M365 is it, right? That's going to
Yeah.
turbo boost that experience for the individual, right?
Yeah.
As soon as it starts working its way outside of, right, individual
Yep.
productivity, we're really talking about agency, right? And leveraging
Yeah.
Copilot in our case, right? Leveraging Copilot agents to do work on behalf of a process or a group of people that are involved in a process. And oh boy, are there processes in the provider space?
Yes. There are yeah, yeah. I was gonna say, like last week out in California, got to encounter some of the processes, many of which were still, I hate to say, paper bound, um, which then meant paper and then rekeyed entry. And it also, what struck me too was, in the case of this particular provider, was the disconnected information between.
Disconnected information and kind of a communications logjam, if you will,
Oh
right?
my
Like,
goodness, yeah. I mean, somebody would come and then you'd be having to explain what went. And I'm very fortunate in with my own provider in that they've done a great job in getting it all. Everything is computer. They don't do anything on paper unless it's required by federal law, to have a physical copy. Everything is done in there, and it's done in a so that like as they're walking in, they're like, oh, I see that you got blah 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 blah, blah. But this wasn't the case, and I know that that's often not the case.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's where I think, right? Like I said, that last point, that agent for every process, right?
Yeah.
It's going to reinvent the way. Honestly, it'll reinvent a lot of processes, and it'll
Mm-hmm.
reinvent the way organizations get work done. To be honest, I can, if the two of us last 10 or 15 more years in tech, right? I can see a lot of things changing.
Yeah. I
A
mean, I
lot of
see it
things
changing
changing.
radically over the next 5, just because of the speed of advance. Like as they were going through the things you can do with agents, and I'm gonna show a little brief bit, and we'll be looking at some of the news sources. But um, I think you're already seeing the ability to rapidly. I'll just give one example. Like I'm going to be showing later how you can create an agent writing Microsoft 365 Copilot. Right? I don't have to be a programmer. I don't even have to go to Copilot Studio. It's kind of a studio instantiation, but light for anybody that
Yeah,
wants to
the
put something
builder.
together.
Yeah.
And we did that. I'm on a team that was, we were looking at compiling all the vast information around Copilot for what we call HPSI, and that's our national around healthcare and life sciences, education, finance, a couple of different groups that fall under that. And our VP wanted it all centralized. And we were, the first initial run was building a Power App on top of SharePoint for intake and output and access. And it just wasn't elegant. The day that we released internally the ability to build in an agent, which was, we had it before Ignite, I literally showed up at the meeting and our manager, Joyce, said, Mike, can you show how to do that? And I did it. I built one in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
That did what they were looking to do. Now, oh my goodness, are you kidding me?
Yeah, there's even a session. I can't remember what session it was, but basically, there was a session showing, right, taking some of those Power App experiences and literally building kind of a manifest for an agent.
Yeah.
Right. And it's all automated. Right.
Yeah.
It's all automated. So if you've got Power Apps that, still require a little, drop down list here,
yep,
filling in a form here, there, you may want to take a look at that, because essentially what we're doing is we're converting that agent to the new way to engage, right? Yeah. AI is the new UI, so to speak.
I love that. And that was something they talked about, right?
That is, I think Satya opened up with that, right?
Yeah.
So essentially converting that UI into a natural engagement, right, through language. You can do it. So you don't even have to rebuild your Power Apps into an agent. It'll do it for you.
Cool.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, that is pretty cool. So I did want to highlight real quick, before I'm going to jump into a couple of things, and they hit me, but we do have, that's why we have the browser up. So for those who missed Ignite, they may be wondering how they can catch up on the news, right? All the because ton. So the first place, and we'll have the link. It'll be underneath if you're watching us now through the magic of internet land. Down below the video here on the blog at aka.ms/HLS blog. If you're there, then you'll see underneath resources, and we have links to them. So first is this book of news. It has, if you go to table of contents, it has categories for everything that's here. There's agents, there's Microsoft 365 Copilot, AI opportunities, investment, Azure AI, going into different industries and platforms, right? But all you have to do is click through any one of these. You can come to and say, hey, I want to easily delegate repetitive tasks. Boom, takes you there. And then it tells you about it. It has the in-depth post about that particular piece of information, downloading visual assets. You can watch if there's a video recording. Yeah. I mean, I think this is great, right? So all kinds of great content here. That's the book of news. That's first. The second that we got 3 different ones. Introducing Copilot Actions, which really gets into this whole new piece so people were starting to do agents with Studio where they would pull together sources, but then it was still, you had to come up with the initial prompt and any subsequent prompts, right? You were iterating through. With Actions, now you can have it do, once you complete this, and provide the prompt, then you go to the next thing and then pull from this source and data. So going to your point, that whole agent that extends now, not just the Microsoft 365 data, but it can be to all kinds of sources. We've got a bit of that here. And then finally, enhancing the platform with knowledge improvements. So now if you are doing it, I'll show you in Microsoft 365 Copilot, but I'll quick open up Studio. With Studio itself, you're able now to go out to sources like ServiceNow, Salesforce, Workday, and many sources becoming available. Even we've got customers I know in the pharma that have built some killer AI applications, specific ones on Azure AI. Now they're going to be able to pull those right in with Microsoft 365 Copilot, right? Be able to do that right in Studio. So we'll leave our listeners / viewers with those 3 resources. Certainly go through and look with the book of news. That's really your first jumping point. But I had a couple of things that I wanted to hit on and quickly talk through, and then I wanted to show something. So the first pertains to that last article about curation. That's been an area where we were getting initially hammered, I think, when Copilot first came out. So it does the graph. I live in Epic. I live in all. How's that helping me get that data I need, right? And pulling it in. And so this idea of knowledge curation, being able to extend out using graph connectors and some other means of curating, the third parties actually providing connectors into their data. To me, that is
1,400. Yeah.
Yeah, over 1,400 that's a lot of data. I mean,
yeah, odds are you're using, right? Odds are a connector exists. So check that out first. And if it, by whatever chance, if it doesn't exist, right, provide us with feedback. We'll go get the connector made. And then, if you don't have time to wait for that, you can obviously make your own connector. So there's plenty of options there. Yeah.
I mean, pretty much if it exists and has data, we can connect to it now.
Yep.
So that was a big one for me, seeing that and being able to now start to look at those external sources. And I've been doing the web was kind of a low level entry one for that, and I've been showing customers for a while now, pulling in a couple of internal data sources around the 2 that I set up 2 different libraries, one for information around RSV and RSV. That's right. The flu, and the other was for COVID. So 2 internal repositories, but then extending out to either World Health Organization or typically I'd grab just CDC information. So you had in one spot an agent to query across all internal and external, right?
Awesome.
But now web was easy. These others now over 1,400. That's huge. The other was around. Another was that Azure, for Azure AI, because we've seen for a lot of organizations, again, they're like this. That's great. You can do all this in Microsoft 365 Copilot, but we need. We're developing new molecules for a pharmaceutical, right? And we have to set up an AI specific application in Azure to build and train to do blah, blah. And actually, and there's an example of that out there in the public now. I forget who it was with, but there is a case study out there where they developed a molecule. I think they talked about it at Ignite in a matter of weeks instead of months to years. And so the ability now, though, that was kind of a separate land over here in Azure AI. And then you had Microsoft 365 Copilot. Now you can, through the power of Studio, quickly pull that kind of data into the Microsoft 365, right? And make that available in those agents. And then the last for me, which was the big one, because I'm all about ease of use. And for people who are like me, don't know a whole lot, and I am not a programmer. And no, I did not stay at a certain hotel chain to get smarter on it. So the ability to now write in 365, which can be either in the standalone web, which I'll bring up, or in Teams. Usually I build it out right in Teams. Being able to build that, and I wanted to quick just kind of show that because I think it's powerful. So I'm going to pull up. This should be familiar to everybody with Microsoft 365. You come in, here's that, welcome, and all the pay. Oh, he cut off because of the dog. I wanted the dog in the podcast. But if you come here now, when that's turned on, Copilot, we're going to name your dog Copilot, have it be on the podcast. So if you come in here, you should start to notice, if you don't see it already, and it will be for those who are licensed and enabled by IT. So there is controls. Calm down. There are controls. Not everybody gets it. But in addition to having this Copilot for work in web, where you can start to message, you'll notice over here on the right-hand side, there is this create an agent. And above that, if you've created any and published them, you're going to get them here on the right. So here is, well, we're going to look at this one in just a second. But
and that's if, and Mike, that's if the actual agent's been assigned to you, right? As part of your job role, right? Or if you've created it.
It can be. Well, I'm going to show you. So there's different, like you can do that based off of, in Copilot Studio, you can get very granular. But here it's as easy. So this one here, for example, there is a committee under our VP of a number of, managers, executives, et cetera, that wanted this Copilot made easy for the field sales, right? And so I was able to go in, build the real quick, and simply say share. And when people got that share, they then were able to click and it installed it into theirs just through a share mechanism. But, here's this one. We're going to take a look at this clinical content assistant. Before I click in it, I'm going to click here to create an agent. This is where you would start. And you can see it has some help for you. You can give a description. It says you can pick templates. So we have a couple of these right here, just examples. You could go straight into configure with an image, title, instructions, where's the information coming from, the different prompts you want to provide, up to 6 that you can put over here. But you can also, right from here, if I click down and say view all agents, they'll show all the ones I've created in the past, right? So here's this clinical content assistant. I'm going to click the edit button, and so we can just quickly see what I did versus taking all that time. So you can see I went in, gave it a name, a description, instructions. I pulled 2 different SharePoint sites, and you can see down at the bottom, this one is to the RSV demo library. The other one is to the demo COVID library. So 2 libraries full of documents. Here's where, if you want to open up in Copilot Studio to do actions, those things we were talking about, you can get a little deeper. I didn't need to here. Capabilities. I thought this was pretty cool. This is new. Do you want to be able to drop code in there and have it interpret it? And do you want to be able to allow image generation in there? So you check them. By default, they're both off. I checked them on, just thought it was fun. And then I put in, my starter prompts, right? The different ones. You can see those showing up over here. Then once I went ahead and clicked update, it gave me the option to say, by default, it's only available to you. But then you can select who do you want it available for. And so you can say to set group, and you can put the, people in. It's just Entra ID, or for those who need translation, Active Directory in the past, right? Now we call it Entra. But, you put that in, and you can test it right from here. And then when you're done, you get an agent that your whole team can have, right? And so you can come in and say, hey, you know, I want to do things like summarize content from here, maybe generate a report based off of the documents in the COVID library. A summary report for RSV. I'll click this just for the heck of it. And we can go ahead. And so now it's looking at that specific library. It's executing the task. Dun, 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 dun.
And Mike, you'll have the same experience in the biz chat experience within Teams, right? Because the agent has been shared with you, or you've created the agent, or you've published the agent to a specific group of individuals, right? That experience will not only be within the browser, but also within Teams, biz chat.
In fact, let me just drag it over real quick. It's coming up. Here we go. Boop. So here is Teams, right?
Yep. Cool.
And there it is within Teams, and there's those two.
That's
you can make it. I actually made it in Teams when I did it. But now I can download the report it's generated. Look, notice there's that code piece because I enabled code. I can even, because I enabled, actually, let's go back, say new chat and clinical. Come on. There we go. Maybe summarize the content from a particular library, just do a couple of things. But then what I'll do is something that's not there in a prompt. And here you go. So, and then I could ask for more details. It's giving references. I could even say, let's say, create an image, because I remember I allowed this. An image of a nurse washing their hands in the ER. So now I've asked it, you know, hey, I'd like a image generation. And so now it's going to use the image generation capabilities here, right?
And that's because you enabled it in those configuration settings, right? That toggle.
Yeah. And if you don't want that for the users of this agent or for your own agent, right? Just you don't enable it, right? That's all.
Yeah. So Mike, it's interesting. Like when I see this interface, right, whether it's through the browser or through Teams, I think one way of looking at this is to think of Copilot as your smartphone and agents as your apps.
I like that. So the apps are over here, right? And then, I like that. And then you're creating, or people, there we go. So I've got a couple options, and then I can grab that image, download, add to pages, copy it.
Check the number of fingers. I know that's been a problem in the past.
It looks like it did it right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 fingers.
Good. Well, 4 fingers and a thumb, right?
Like 2 months ago, it was giving me the right fingers when I would do this one, but sometimes I had gloves on.
Got it.
But it's all been steadily improving, and it's a nice high fidelity image. Give that a thumbs up. I could say and submit that, but here we have a lineup. But it's just a great way to be able to provide mission specific things. And the thing that I like is, again, I could have opened it up in Studio. I don't think it does it yet. It has that verbiage there. Actually, it's just for the giggles. Go back here, view all agents, edit, see if it will open in Studio. I do have Studio already open.
There it is. So will it show up if you go to the agents? The agents button on the left?
Yep. No, not yet. Okay. So it's almost there. That's coming. So that is supposed to be forthwith. But here you can see, yeah, a couple of agents that I went ahead and created, right? And you can go ahead very simply, like come here to the home screen in Studio. And by the way, for anybody watching, I didn't even expect it to open this up. It normally I got a pop-up previously.
So Mike, if you go back to agents and then you
Yeah.
hit Copilot for M365, click on
That's
click
I
on it.
don't think
Does it give you a list of
that's it.
agents that you've created? Right. So now I can add an agent for Copilot for M365. That's the
Absolutely.
difference, right? Because in Copilot Studio, right, you're building a
Yep.
custom like declarative agent, right?
Yeah.
And it's built through that Copilot Studio platform, right?
hmm
In the case of the agent you just demoed, right, that is a Copilot for M365 agent, right?
Yep.
In which, right, in my kind of my scenario, if you think about Copilot as the phone, right, and then agents as the apps,
Yep.
it gives you a convenient way to interact with those apps, right? And those apps can do all kinds of things, right? Like we have apps on our
Yeah.
phone that, allow us to book a ride from the airport, right? We have apps on our phone that allow us to manage our finances. It's just helping, right, you be a little bit more productive in your day-to-day experience. It's a different interface, right? It's a
Yeah.
natural language type interface where you have to prompt and you will get and get good at prompting, right? For getting the
Yep.
information back that you expect or at least hope, right? The LLM will assist you with. So I like thinking about it like that. That's an
Yeah.
analogy I think that's been probably overused a lot, but everybody knows what this is and what the apps they choose to
Yeah.
use do in their everyday life. I think the same is going to happen here with Copilot for M365 and the agents we build within our organizations to help get specific jobs done, right? Jobs that may be outside of the individual's purview. It may include a number of people on a team, right?
Yep.
That have to, right, fulfill a process using, right, their human brain or communicate in some way, right? That, hey, right, the step number one in this process is complete. On to step two, kind of thing. And I think that's really what's going to, honestly, it's what every organization has been interested in ever since we introduced Copilot for M365, right? They're thinking more around processes and how can I take kind of, right, some of the pain out of those processes.
Yeah.
And this is really the first step towards accomplishing that.
Yeah. And again, I love it because here in all this, again, we're in low code, right? Again, I mean, I could come in,
Or no
give it a
code.
description. What do I want? I can skip to the configuration. This all looks very familiar. Add your starter prompts. I do like this. Add your knowledge. It's a little different in here. Now I've got, hey, I want SharePoint. It's got
Coming
a couple of
soon.
different ones here. You can search for things. And so you can add different data sources. In fact, then if you go into advanced, you've got a whole
There's where the
range. If you
connectors
have,
come in. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and just pull them in. And so actually, this is funny. I had somebody ask me about Confluence the other day. I got an answer
Yeah,
for
popular one. Yep,
Yeah.
popular one. For sure.
Yeah, custom. Here's your own. It could be anything. But here's Salesforce. People ask us, "What about your competitors?" Right? Well, there's a Salesforce. Here's ServiceNow, SAP, SharePoint, and there are a whole range of other ones that will be quickly coming here. I've been limited in what I get because we're not allowing people to publish a whole bunch of goodies here. But
yep.
I just, if people will take the time to start looking, they'll find it's very easy to work with, to create your agents, to make them available. We have, from going as a agent in SharePoint where you just make something and it can be for yourself or others, give them a link, to doing it in Microsoft 365 like I opened up where you had permissions, and it, when you share, it actually brings them to the pop-up to install it or enable it. Then you get that app.
Yep.
And then in
Maybe
Studio here, you actually designate where you're publishing it to.
Yeah. Which channels exactly? Where do you want that experience to appear? So I think it may make sense. I kind of brewing in my head here as you're talking, mainly because I'm getting a lot of demand from it for this. A lot of demand to have conversations around. This is all great and good, right? But then how do I put my layer of governance over this, right? So do I necessarily need everybody in my organization creating agents?
No.
That may be a yes or no question. It may be, it depends.
Yeah.
So then how do we put some controls around that, right?
Yeah.
And we definitely have some material that we can share. Maybe
we should do a follow-up.
Maybe we should do a follow-up episode on 3 things around governance.
Managing governance of agents. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's all I got from, I mean, there was a ton, I could throw things. I just got to throw this out. I didn't have it down on my thing. They had, I'm a big goober about streaming media. I've been doing, media services from way back, and way back when it was Windows Media Services, then Azure Media Services.
Yeah.
They showcased, and I thought this was just so cool because the one issue, like we're in a real-time, two-way video share. The one thing that we've seen with this kind of stuff is the scale. You can get up and scale to a certain size, but at some point you got to kick over into streaming media, and there's that delay and all that. They showed two-way real-time streaming media, brand new.
Wow. Yeah,
real time.
I didn't catch
I'm
that
like,
one.
that means it's unlimited scale except for the amount of resources. I mean, it's just the resources you want to throw at it.
Sure.
But I was like,
wow.
Crazy stuff.
You'll have to share that session with me later. I need to look at that.
It's pretty crazy. But that's all I got. You got anything else you want to?
I think that's it, Mike. Reach out if you have any questions. Obviously, we're not always super succinct in our conversation. We kind of bounce all over the place. So if there's a conversation you want to have to focus in on some of the 3 things we mentioned during today's episode, let us know.
Yep.
We're going to share the resources with you. I think that'll be helpful. Yeah. And then, actually share your thoughts on what you thought was important coming out of Ignite. I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, drop them in the comments below the post. We'd love to hear. We might even open up, I think, a mailbag at some point, something for taking, questions. And I guess that's it. And we got for a Thanksgiving week, it seems busy.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it is. Trying to get those last minute conversations in before everybody takes off, I guess.
We want Copilot before the turkey. Get the Copilot. All right, so
Mike.
with that, it's Mike.
Chad.
Have a great day, everybody. Take care, and as always, ciao.